Hi, everyone. Welcome to our pre-filing season tax tips. We hosted this last year, and I think a lot of people really got a lot out of it. So we are happy to have Teresa Licati-Bildick back to join us. Teresa is our local taxpayer advocate over in Plantation. She's just a few minutes from our Naples office, our Plantation office. And we also have Miguel Cardona, who is our qualified tax expert here at the LITC. So I am going to turn it over to Teresa, who is going to start things off.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, our presentation is we're hoping to give you some pre-filing season tax tips. And TAS is just short for Taxpayer Advocate Service. I am with Taxpayer Advocate Service. So we're going to review some of the most common errors that occur when filing federal returns, and we're going to provide you some tips on how to avoid these pitfalls. Next slide, please. Now, at this time of year, people are very eager to get their tax return done, and a lot of them have already gone somewhere and gotten their tax return done, even though the IRS is not quite accepting tax returns yet. But what we want you to do is stop for a minute before filing just yet. So that you can follow our tax tips to avoid common tax errors that delay return processing. And when you're sure that your tax return is ready, you're going to get the green light and be able to file it electronically. Next slide, please. Our first tip is to use all your year-end income statements. I can't tell you how many times people forget that they may have worked an extra job and they have not received their end of year income statement just yet. So they jump the gun, they file their return, and then they realize that they missed part of their income for the year. So if you receive wages, you're going to want to wait until you receive your Form W-2. And again, if you had more than one job, you want to make sure that you get all of your W-2s. Your employer generally has until January 31st to send year-end wage-related statements. And if you are trying to use your last paycheck stub, remember that maybe there was some adjustments that your employer made, and it's not 100 your last paycheck stub may not be 100% accurate. It may not have all the information that you need to file your tax return, so you really should wait until you receive your W-2s. So as I said, employers have until January 31st to mail them out, which means that you'll start receiving them by early February. Um, IRS is making 2023 another transition year to implement the new requirements under the American Rescue Plan Act that changed the Form 1099-K reporting threshold for payments taxpayers get selling goods or providing a service of over $600. So the previous reporting thresholds will remain in place for 2023. That means that payment apps and online marketplaces are only required to send out a 1099-K to taxpayers who receive over $20,000 in payments and over 200 transactions. For tax year 2024, the IRS plans a threshold of $5,000 to phase in reporting requirements. Here are some additional tax tips to ensure you receive timely and accurate statements. You should confirm that each payer has your current address before the end of the calendar year. If you move during the years, make sure that your employer has your current address and not an old address. Review all forms for accuracy. As soon as you receive your forms, take a look at them, make sure everything is correct. If you find any discrepancies, contact your payer, your employer immediately and request that they issue a corrected statement as soon as possible. If you are unable to obtain your year-end income statement from your employer, you can call the IRS for assistance. However, the IRS is there Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., except for Alaska and Hawaii time. However, you have to wait until after the middle of February because we have to allow the employers time to issue it, to issue the W-2s and the other reporting statements, and also that to send it to Social Security and have the IRS receive a copy of it as well. Next slide, please. Okay. So IRS has what is called integrity and verification operations. And I'm going to explain to you why it's so important to use year-end income figures. The IRS's computer systems compare the income that you reported on your tax return to what has been reported to the IRS. When income and federal income tax withholding don't match what the IRS has on file from the payer, this will cause a delay in the processing of the return and any refund. We see this every single year. Taxpayers reach out to our office for assistance because their tax return has not completed processing and they have not gotten their refund. And 9 out of 10 times, it's because what they reported on their tax return does not match what the IRS received from the same payer. I'm going to give you an example. You report $300 of federal income tax withholding on your return. However, your employer reported $30 of federal income tax uh, withholding on your W-2. The difference is can cause a delay in processing your return, and consequently, any refund you claimed will be delayed, and it doesn't match what was reported to the IRS. And this is not a short delay. This could delay your refund and the processing of your return for many, many months. This is why it's important for you to review your payer information forms as you receive them. Any errors, contact your payer and allow them time to correct it. If they agree that there's an error on your W-2, they will issue a corrected W-2 and send a copy of the corrected W-2 to the IRS. Um, if you can get the discrepancy corrected before you file your return, there won't be any delays because what you file is going to match what the IRS has. Okay. Next slide, please. You're going to want to check that all the information is correct for you, your spouse, and your dependents. Check that your name is spelled correctly, your identification numbers are correct, and that's social security numbers or individual taxpayer identification number if anyone on your return does not have a social security number, or if you've recently adopted a child, an adoption taxpayer identification number. You want to make sure everybody's date of birth is correct, address is correct, and very important, your bank account information is correct. Make sure that it is correct because if there's an error and you agree to that tax return and it gets sent to the wrong bank account, there's nothing that the IRS can do, and then you're going to have to wait until hopefully the bank sends the money back. And again, that all of this is going to delay your refund it could delay it by months. So if any of these items are incorrect on a payer statement, contact that payer. And again, remember that you must have a valid social security number for all your dependents before filing, or that may not only delay processing of your return, but in certain instances, it can disqualify you from refundable credits, such as earned income tax credit. And we'll discuss that in just a little bit. So some banks may even reject a direct deposit if the account holder's name does not match the tax return. So keep that in mind. So if you have a new baby, make sure you have a social security number. Or if they're not eligible for social security number, you need to apply for an individual taxpayer identification number with the IRS. And that can take several weeks or months to get. So you want to make sure that you start that process early. And what I also, to help prevent identity theft, you can apply for an individual protection, I'm sorry, an identity protection personal identification number. The acronym is IPPIN. And if you choose an IP PIN is a 6-digit number that prevents someone else from filing a tax return using your social security number or your ITIN. However, the IP PIN is known only to you and the IRS, and it helps verify your identity when you file your electronic or paper tax return. And the fastest way to receive an IP PIN is by using the online Get an IP PIN tool. And you could just go to the irs.gov website, and that's where you can request an IP PIN. I do want to warn you though that once you opt in and get an IP PIN, you cannot opt out. So keep that in mind. That means that year after year, you will have to get an IP PIN in order to file your tax return. Next slide, please. All right. Check for all credits and deductions for which you may be eligible. Review the tax form instructions to ensure you claim all the deductions and credits for which you are eligible. A lot of the eligibility requirements for these items often change yearly, and the forms and formulas used to calculate them can be complex to complete. So, generally, family related credits and deductions are the areas we see the most errors. And one of the main reasons, after the income and wage mismatches that I just mentioned, this is one of the main reasons that can cause return processing slowdowns. So, follow the instructions carefully, double check your entry information, and always recheck your math. Next slide, please. Here are some possible family credits for which you may be eligible. And so in just a minute, go back one slide, please. Yeah, okay. Um, Again, review the tax form instructions, or if needed, consult a tax professional to ensure you correctly claim all the deductions and credits for which you are eligible. Be aware that irs.gov has several interactive tax assistant tools. These are online tools that will help you determine if you are eligible for a particular credit or deduction and the amount. So many will also tell you what forms or schedules to claim them on, and they link you to more detailed instructions for how to do that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Miguel, who's going to talk to you a little about earned income tax credit and other credits. Miguel?
Oh, thank you, Teresa. Okay, let's start with the earned income tax credit. It's always important to keep these earned income tax credit requirements in mind, as a lot of tax return errors involve claiming this credit and the related filing status incorrectly. Earned income, as well as other taxable income, figures into the adjusted gross income claimed on your return. The adjusted gross income must be the same as or less than a specific income limit each year. This varies from year to year. Income limits also change based on the number of children being claimed and the different filing status selected. However, the easiest way to determine if you're eligible to take the earned income tax credit is to use the earned income tax credit assistant tool that is available on irs.gov. You can just go on irs.gov, and then there is going to be a search box where you can type in EITC. Then there is going to be a link for earned income tax credit where you click And then from that link, you're going to have the option of selecting check if you qualify. Once you select the option of check if you qualify, then there is another link that says use the EITC assistant. That EITC assistant tool is also available in Spanish. By answering questions and providing basic income information, you can use the EITC assistant to find out if you're eligible for earned income tax credit, determine if your child or children meet the test for a qualifying child, and estimate the amount of your credit. You, your spouse, and anyone being claimed for earned income tax credit purposes must all have Social Security numbers that are valid for employment before the due date of the return, including extensions. Married filing separate is the only filing status that does not generally qualify for earned income tax credit, but there is an exception since 2021 and beyond when married filing separate is allowed for earned income tax credit purposes under the American Rescue Plan Act that was passed during the pandemic. Other filing statuses that also qualify you for the earned income tax credit are married filing jointly, abbreviated as MFJ on the screen, head of household, abbreviated as HOH, qualifying widower, abbreviated as QW, or widower or single. If you have foreign income that is reported on Form 2555, foreign earned income, or Form 2555EZ, this will disqualify you from receiving the earned income tax credit. You must be a U.S. citizen or resident alien all year to claim the earned income tax credit. If you or your spouse, if married, were a non-resident alien for any part of the year, you cannot claim the earned income tax credit unless your filing status is married filing jointly. You can use the filing status married filing jointly only if one spouse was a U.S. citizen or resident alien and they choose to treat the non-resident spouse as a U.S. resident, making any worldwide income taxable. For more information on this, you will need to get publication 519 U.S. Tax Guide for Aliens. As we just mentioned, there are instances where you may still qualify for the earned income tax credit, even if you don't have a child or if you have a grandchild living with you. So see if you meet the rules for those without a qualifying child or have a qualifying child in special circumstances. This information is available on irs.gov. In a moment, we will provide some good resources where to refer to if you are considering claiming the earned income tax credit. Next slide, please. Earned income tax credit information for tax year 2023, which is the year, which is the current filing season. For the earned income credit, you must have earned income. That is the main requirement to claim the earned income tax credit. And what is earned income? Earned income includes all the taxable income and wages you get from working for someone else, yourself, or from a business or farm that you own. Some examples of earned income include wages, salaries, or tips, income from a job where your employer didn't withhold taxes, money made from self-employment, some types of disability benefits that you got before you were the minimum retirement age, and non-taxable combat pay. There are some type of incomes that are not considered earned income for earned income tax credit purposes. So they cannot be taken into consideration when determining eligibility for the earned income tax credit. Some example of incomes that are not considered earned income for the earned income tax credit are pay that you got for work when you were an inmate in a penal institution, interest and dividends, pensions or annuities, Social Security, unemployment benefits, alimony, or child support. Another requirement for the earned income tax credit is that if you have investment income, it cannot be more than 11,000. It has to be 11,000 or less. Another requirement is that you must have a valid Social Security number by the due date of the return, including extension. But there is a special rule when a spouse that is not a U.S. citizen or a resident alien, as I just explained before. You also have to meet the adjusted gross income for your filing status. And you must be a U.S. citizen or a resident alien, except the example that I provided before when there is a married filing jointly return filed with a non-U.S. citizen or non-resident alien. If you want to research the adjusted gross income limits information, you can go on irs.gov and then you can just search the topics that you see on the right side of your screen. You can just type in those topics on the irs.gov website and you will get more information about the earned income tax credit. Please realize that there are consequences that can occur for incorrect earned income tax credit claims. And it really takes a long way to obtain a refund if you are making a claim and then further information is needed for the IRS to process the refund that included the earned income tax credit. Some of the consequences can include a delay of the earned income tax credit part of your refund until the error can be corrected. If that happens, the delay can take a long way, several months, or who knows how long it can take. Denial of all or part of your earned income tax credit. If the credit is denied, then, and you already received the earned income tax credit, then you must pay back the amount of the earned income tax credit that was paid in error. Plus, you may need to file a special form, which is the Form 8862, information to claim refundable credits after the credit is disallowed, to claim earned income tax credit again in the future. If the error is because there is some reckless or intentional disregard of the rules, you could be banned from claiming the earned income tax credit for the next 2 years. If the error is because of some type of fraud, the IRS could ban you from claiming the earned income tax credit for the next 10 years. Last but not least, know that if you claim the earned income tax credit or the child tax credit on your return, by law, neither the IRS nor Tax Advocate Service can issue your refund before mid-February. However, generally, those refunds do start to get released around the first week of March. You will need to check irs.gov for information on when these refunds will be released exactly. Do not call the IRS or tax phone lines prior to these timeframes because the refund is not going to be issued. Next slide, please. Each year, there appears to be the same type of errors around EITC eligibility. Improper EITC payments remain a huge issue each year, every year. Some common errors include claiming a child who does not meet the residency and relationship requirements, The biggest dollar amount of errors is someone claiming a child who is not their qualifying child. Review the eligibility options carefully to ensure the child's relationship to you is one of the eligible options and determine whether the child lived with you for more than half of the year. The next big error identified is incorrectly reporting income or expenses, particularly Schedule C income and expenses. Schedule C mainly concerns business income. So a person that has business income, they have to be able to accurately report the income and expenses because that is going to affect the eligibility for the earned income tax credit. The third most common error is filing as single or head of household when the person is married. Make sure that you claim the correct filing status. A married individual may be eligible to file as head of household in certain situations, but there are some specific rules that must be satisfied for a married individual to file as head of household as opposed to married filing jointly. For more information, you can go to irs.gov and search Earned Income Tax Credit. Last but not least, we see errors causing the name and social security number to not match with IRS and Social Security Administration records. This continues to be a problem. So watch for spelling and double check the number. Another part of this problem is someone else may be using the child's social security number. You need to ask yourself, did the child live with anyone else during the year, or is there someone else who may claim this child? You can visit irs.gov at the link that is provided on the screen for more of the most common errors to avoid when claiming the Earned Income Tax Credit. Next slide, please. Now, let's talk about some of the other credits and deductions that are available. If you go to irs.gov and you search credits and deductions for individuals, you will see many different credits and deductions available, but we are not going to be covering them all. But we are going to be discussing some of them. Next slide, please. The credit, and one example of credits is for credit for other dependents. This is a tax credit available to taxpayers for each of their qualifying dependents who can't be claimed for the child tax credit. The maximum credit amount is $500 for each dependent who meets certain conditions. These include dependents who are age 17 or older, dependents who have individual taxpayer identification numbers. Individual taxpayer identification numbers are assigned to taxpayers who do not have social security numbers. Another instance in which a person may qualify for the credit for other dependents is for dependent parents or other qualifying relatives supported by the taxpayer, or dependents living with the taxpayer who aren't related to the taxpayer. The credit begins to phase out when the taxpayer's income is more than $200,000, and this phase out begins for married couples filing a joint return at $400,000. A taxpayer can claim this credit if they claim the person as a dependent on the taxpayer's return. They cannot use the dependent to claim the child tax credit or additional child tax credit, or the dependent is a U.S. citizen, national, or resident alien. Taxpayers can claim the credit for other dependents in addition to the child and dependent care credit and the earned income credit. Taxpayers can use the instructions for Schedule 8812 to help them determine if they can claim the credit for other dependents. Next slide, please. Education expenses. You need a Form 1098-T to issue statement from an eligible educational institution to claim education expenses. Schools have until January 31st to provide this form. It can be provided by mail or electronically. If not received by early to mid-February, you will need to contact the institution to get a copy of the form. There have been several cases in the past where this credit was claimed when a tax return preparer completes the return, but the taxpayer never actually attended school. So double check any and all credit claims on the return, especially if someone else is preparing it for you before you sign the return, because some tax preparers make certain claims on the return that the taxpayer does not necessarily instruct the tax preparer to claim, and then there are many different consequences when things are done improperly. Make sure to review the Form 1098-T for accuracy, including amounts paid, to prevent possible issues claiming this credit. Next slide, please. Premium tax credit. The premium tax credit is a refundable credit that helps eligible individuals and families to cover the premiums for their health insurance purchased through the health insurance marketplace. If you didn't know, in certain circumstances, you may also qualify to get advance payments of this credit. And if you do get the benefit of advance credit payments in any amount, you must reconcile the total credit you're eligible for with the amount of your advance credit payments for the year on the Form 8962, which is a premium tax credit form. The marketplace will send you a health insurance marketplace statement, which is a Form 1095-A, generally by January 31st of the year following the year of coverage. This form shows the amount of the premiums for you and your family's healthcare plans. This form also includes other information, such as advanced credit payments made on your behalf that you will need to compute your premium tax credit or to reconcile advanced credit payments on Form 8962. The Form 1095-A does not get attached to the tax return, but is needed to complete the Form 8962. So for this credit, you must meet certain requirements and file an individual tax return, which is Form 1040 or Form 1040-NR or Form 1040-SR, with the Form 8962 attached. You can visit the links shown on the slide for more information about qualifying for this credit and how to claim the credit if you're eligible to claim. For tax years 2021 and 2022, the American Rescue Plan Act temporarily expanded eligibility for the premium tax credit by eliminating the rule that a taxpayer with household income above 400% of the federal poverty line cannot qualify for a premium tax credit. Similar to the year-end wage statement example that Teresa mentioned before, filing your return without reconciling your advance payments or when claiming the premium tax credit may delay your refund, and in this case may affect future advance credit payments also. As with any missing attachment, the IRS will correspond with you to secure the completed form before they can finish processing your return, which can take time. If you also receive other forms, such as 1095-B or 1095-C, that also relate to the health insurance, which are not related to the marketplace, but may be related to your health insurance coverage, you can obtain different answers to your questions on irs.gov for information about how these forms affect your tax returns. There are options if you don't get a Form 1095-A in the mail. If you purchase coverage through the federally facilitated marketplace and you set up a healthcare.gov account, you can get a copy of Form 1095-A Health Insurance Marketplace statement online from your account. If you purchased coverage through a state-based marketplace, you may be able to get an electronic copy of the Form 1095-A from your state-based marketplace account. Visit your marketplace website to find out the steps you need to follow to get a copy of your Form 1095-A. If you have not received the form at all and no copy is available online, or you received an incorrect form, you should contact the marketplace from which you received health insurance coverage. If you receive a corrected or voided Form 1095-A after you file the tax return, you may need to file an amended return. For more information on what you need to do with the corrected or voided form, you can go to irs.gov and obtain different type of answers. This information can help you assess whether you should file an amended return or not. Some taxpayers inadvertently file Form 8885, which is a health coverage tax credit, instead of the Form 8962, which is a form for the premium tax credit. So that's something that needs to be corrected if the taxpayer doesn't file the correct form when filing the return. And for the next slide, I'm going to pass it over to Teresa.
Thank you, Miguel.
You're welcome.
All right. So you are going to want to attach all required forms and schedules before you submit your tax return. So before filing, again, what you want to do is you want to gather all your records first. Make sure you have documents that support every amount of income, deductions, or credits that appear on your tax return. Develop a system that keeps all important information together, which may include a software program for electronic records or a file cabinet for paper documents in labeled folders. Having records readily at hand makes preparing a tax return easier. So I know me personally, I've already started receiving a few income documents for the new year. You know, my W-2 came in the mail a few days ago. So I created a physical folder for these documents so that when it's time to prepare my tax return, I have everything together. Any income document that shows federal income tax was withheld must be attached to your return if you're filing by paper. If you're filing electronically, you will follow the software provider's instructions. So basically, when you're filing electronically, all the information from your W-2 is going to be entered into the software. Remember, your last paycheck stub is not guaranteed to be an accurate statement of your annual earnings, and it could be missing some information that you need to file an accurate tax return. And if it doesn't match what the IRS received, there could be delay in processing of your refund. So be sure to use your payer's final year-end form. So if it's a W-2, wait to receive that W-2. If you received unemployment compensation this past year, know that some states do not mail Form 1099-G certain government payments. Some agencies paying the benefits will issue people who received unemployment benefits in the prior year a Form 1099-G. Some will mail a hard copy, and or it may be available on their website. So I'm not sure. Miguel, do you know if Florida mails out 1099-G or not?
Uh, I have seen taxpayers receiving them. For the most part, the state sends them, but sometimes taxpayers change addresses. So it depends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if you don't, if you have changed and that the state may have sent it to the wrong address, check with their website and it may be available online. The Form 1099-G will show the amount of unemployment compensation received in Box 1, and if any federal income tax was withheld, that will be indicated in Box 4. So taxpayers must report the unemployment compensation, income, and withholding on the appropriate lines on their federal tax return. So more information on unemployment is available in the Unemployment Benefits chapter in Publication 525, which is taxable and non-taxable income. And again, all of these publications are available for you to pull up on the irs.gov website. Taxpayers who received a federal tax refund in 2023 may have been paid interest. So refund interest payments are taxable and must be reported on federal income tax returns. In January 2024, the IRS will send Form 1099 INT, short for interest, to anyone who received interest in 2023 totaling $10 or more. When claiming certain credits, as we described, a lot of them require a specific schedule or form to be completed and included with the tax return. For each credit or deduction claimed, check the form's instructions for when an additional schedule is required to be completed and if that schedule needs to be submitted with the tax return when filing. Next slide, please. Finding tax return preparation help. There are a lot of people, don't realize that there is free tax help available. So free tax help is available from VITA and TCE, and you can get free help if you meet certain income qualifications from trained volunteers. The IRS Volunteer Income Tax Assistance and Tax Counseling for the Elderly, so VITA and TCE, programs both offer free tax help for taxpayers who qualify. VITA sites offer free tax help to people who need assistance in preparing their own tax returns, including people who generally make $60,000 or less, persons with disabilities, and limited English speaking taxpayers. The TCE, or the Tax Counseling for the Elderly program, offers free tax help, particularly for those who are 60 years of age and older, specializing in questions about pensions and retirement related issues unique to seniors. Before going to a VITA or TCE site, you can see publication 3676B for services provided. Okay. And I believe there may be someone at the end from the VITA program. I don't know if they're on yet, but they will say a few words. If they're around, they will say a few words at the end of the presentation. Our website has get help pages that explain all of your filing options. And of course, you can visit irs.gov for that information. IRS also has Free File. The IRS Free File program is a public private partnership between the IRS and many tax return preparation and filing software industry companies that provide their online tax return preparation and filing for free. It provides two ways for taxpayers to prepare and file their federal income tax returns online for free. The first way is guided tax return preparation, provides free online tax return preparation and filing at an IRS partner site. Our partners delivered this service at no cost to qualifying taxpayers. Taxpayers whose adjusted gross income is $73,000 or less qualify for free federal tax return preparation and filing. And then free file fillable forms are electronic federal tax forms equivalent to a paper form 1040. So you should know how to prepare your own tax return using form instructions and IRS publications if needed. It provides a free option to taxpayers whose income is greater than $73,000. And again, these are really just fillable forms. So it's equivalent to you getting pen and paper and filling out a paper return. You're not going to get much help. No, there's no, nothing is going to be added for you. You're going to have to do all of that on your own. So IRS Free File lets qualified taxpayers prepare and file federal income tax returns online using guided tax return preparation software. It's easy, safe, and no cost to you. Those who don't qualify can still use free file fillable forms. Individual tax return filers, regardless of income, can use IRS Free File to electronically request an automatic tax return filing extension. Taxpayers in certain disaster areas do not need to submit an extension electronically or on paper. Check to see if you qualify and the due date of your tax return. Then there is the tax professional. If you want to get the help of a professional tax return preparer, that's an option too. You can do your own research online, or the IRS provides a tax professional locator too. It's called the Directory of Federal Tax Return Preparers with credentials and select qualifications. Anyone can be a paid tax preparer as long as they have an IRS preparer tax identification number, also known as a PTIN. However, tax return preparers have different levels of skill, education, and expertise. So make sure that you know what the expertise is of the person or that you select. The information on the website, as well as the irs.gov, explains the various tax return preparer credentials and qualifications and how to avoid unethical ghost return preparers. And by ghost is they're not going to put their information on your tax return. They're going to prepare it, they're going to charge you for it, but if you have any issues, it looks like it's a self-prepared return. So be careful. That's a big thing that you want to keep an eye on. There's also information on making a complaint if you have been financially impacted by a tax return preparer's misconduct or improper tax return preparation practices. Again, it's a huge red flag if they don't want to put their information on the return. Next slide, please. So once the return is prepared, you want to e-file it. So you want to file it electronically. So we recommend electronically filing your tax return. It's faster, more accurate, and it's secure. If you've been hesitant in the past and you've always mailed your paper return, the switch over from paper, now's the time to make the move. It's very easy to file electronically. There are many choices when it comes to using personal tax return filing software programs. If you don't qualify for free tax help or you just want to complete the return yourself, most will walk you step by step through completing the form with questions and can be done on your personal computer. Some can be used on mobile phones as well. One caution when using this type of software: if you're using the same software program you used last year, you'll want to check that only the current year information is present and that prior year data didn't pre-populate the fields with prior year information. So just double check your figures before hitting submit. For example, in 2019, you reported wages of $25,000, and in 2020, you had wages of $30,000 from the same employer. You input your current year W-2 with wages of $30,000, and the prior year data rolled over for an additional 25,000 in wages, which would cause a delay in processing the refund as your income is now overstated. Direct deposit. Any of the tax return filing options we just spoke about, including a paper tax return, allows you to choose to have your refund directly deposited. It's free to you, it saves the government money, and it is the fastest way to get your money. You can even split your refund into 1, 2, or 3 financial accounts and buy savings bonds too. Just go to the irs.gov and search using the words direct deposit to get more information, including information on how to open a bank account if you don't already have one. Those without a bank account can learn how to open an account at an FDIC insured bank or through the National Credit Union Locator tool. Veterans should see the Veterans Benefit Banking Program for access to financial services at participating banks. Caution: using a bank account that belongs to someone else may cause delays receiving your refund. Be very careful, because whatever bank account you put on your tax return, you are authorizing the IRS to send your refund to that bank account. If you don't own that bank account and the IRS follows your instructions and sends the money there, and then later the person who owns the bank account won't give you the money, there's nothing that the IRS can do because they followed your instructions. So make sure, be careful with that. Also, be aware that the IRS provides several different ways to pay if you owe. So if you file your return and you owe, there are several ways to pay. One of these is called direct pay. Use the secure service to pay your taxes for for your 1040 for your tax return. You could also use it to make estimated taxes or other associated forms. So again, you can go to the IRS website under the Pay menu tab and just look at the main menu bar to find this page. Next slide, please. You're going to want to file it at the correct IRS address, and these are mostly for paper tax returns. And I know that majority of people like to file electronically, but occasionally there are some people that are not eligible to file electronically, and they have to mail in their paper return. So if you do, you know, make sure you send it to the correct address. And just as a reminder, error rates on paper returns are very high compared to electronic returns. Simple math errors are common, so double check your arithmetic. In addition, with the pandemic still affecting both the IRS and TAS, IRS is still very backed up from the pandemic. They still haven't caught up. Taxpayer Advocate Service, we are busy because so many taxpayers are not getting relief. They're not getting through to the IRS, so they're coming to us for assistance. So paper returns are the last items that get processed. It can take 4 to 6 months. Yes, I said 4 to 6 months for a paper return to get processed. So keep that in mind. If you're filing a paper return, the IRS recently changed a few of its return mailing addresses along with PO box addresses. So make sure you're sending it to the correct address. Review the form's instructions or go to the irs.gov website to determine where to file. Okay. Taxpayers or tax professionals can use private delivery services designated by the IRS to meet the timely mailing as timely filing paying rule for tax returns and payments. And if you are filing last few days of the filing season, make sure you get a return receipt. This is my personal recommendation to you. Make sure you have proof that you filed it. You don't want to take a chance because it has to be date stamped on time in order to be considered timely. And always sign your tax return if you're mailing a paper return, and seal the envelope. So I'm going to now turn it over to Miguel again.
It goes a long way for taxpayers without English proficiency to understand their tax issues. For this, the IRS has instructions, notices, and interpreter services available. The IRS and the Taxpayer Advocate Service Office also offer communications in different formats. Next slide, please. We know that tax information can be hard to understand if in any language. It can be even harder if that information isn't offered in the language that you know best. The IRS is now translating tax resources into more languages. Currently, irs.gov offers basic tax information in English plus more than 20-something other languages. Just look for a listing of languages near the top of each irs.gov webpage and online tools, and then click on the link for the language that you need. You will also need to find many IRS tax forms, schedules, publications, and social media channels in multiple languages. The Taxpayer Advocate Services website resources are currently limited to English and Spanish. There are also international services. If you are a taxpayer or know a taxpayer with specific individual or business account questions, you should contact the International Taxpayer Service Call Center by phone or fax. These account questions can relate to various topics such as overpayment status, balances owed, and correspondence received regarding international tax forms. Don't forget, the low-income taxpayer clinics, which is the services that we provide, are also available to represent low-income individuals who have a tax dispute with the IRS and provide education and outreach to individuals who speak English as a second language. Services are provided for no more than a nominal fee. In our case, all our services are free. The next slide, please. The IRS has a Form 1040 Schedule LEP for change in language preference. This form allows taxpayers to ask for information from the IRS in their preferred language. There are 20 languages you can choose from besides English. Just complete the form and file it with your individual tax return. The form is available in English and Spanish on the IRS forms and publications. If you file Schedule LEP with your tax return, you don't need to file the paper version of this form. You can go to irs.gov/efile for more information. The IRS is updating the form that you see on the screen, so the current version may look slightly different than the version that is on the screen. Next slide, please. Interpreter services. There is a phone number. There are, for international taxpayers who need help with the IRS, they can call a different number. But if, or the Taxpayer Advocate Service also has International Taxpayer Advocate help. To request taxpayer advocate assistance, refer to the Living Abroad section on the local taxpayer advocate page to determine which office to contact based on your location. Interpreter services. You can find the answers to your tax questions. If you can't find the answer to your tax questions in your language on irs.gov, the IRS can offer you help in more than 350 languages with the support of professional interpreters. For assistance in English and Spanish, you can call 1-800-829-1040 For all other languages, you can call 833-553-9895, or for international taxpayers, they can call 267-941-1000. The IRS can also provide an interpreter using over-the-phone interpreter services for most of its taxpayer-facing functions, including in taxpayer assistance centers, during IRS examinations in person, and for any questions over the phone related to a correspondence examination, when dealing with an IRS representative discussing tax collections, and for appeals meetings and conference calls. So if you need an interpreter to help you understand, ask the IRS employee to use the over-the-phone interpreter services option when you call the IRS. Over-the-phone interpreter service is available 24 hours per day, every day, and is free of charge. And then for the next slide, I'm going to return it to Teresa.
Thank you, Miguel. Okay, so accessible IRS tax products. There are available options for obtaining accessible tax products. If you need one in an alternative format, you can either download it from the Accessible Forms and Publications page on irs.gov, or you can request paper copies in Braille or even large print by calling the tax form telephone number at 800 tax form, which is 829-3676. Again, all of this is available on the irs.gov website. Next slide, please. So you can request tax notices and letters in Braille or large print. If you receive a notice or letter, but would prefer to have it in Braille or large print, you have the following choices. You can use Form 9000, Alternative Media Preference, attach the form to your tax return, or mail it separately to the IRS. Or you can call the tax assistance telephone number at 800-829-1040. Okay. Once an election is processed, the IRS will send a standard print copy of a notice with the alternative media copy and any attachments enclosed with the written communication in that alternative format as well. So you'll get both copies. Okay, next slide, please. Call the accessibility helpline at 833-690-0598 with questions on IRS accessibility services. And this is the helpline. They will answer questions related to current and future accessibility products and services available in alternative media formats such as Braille, large print, audio, etc. If you need accessibility assistance, call that number. Assistance for multilingual taxpayers will also be available on the helpline via the over-the-phone interpreter service. And the staff working on this helpline will not have access to taxpayer account information and cannot answer tax-related questions. They're just going to make sure that they get you the information in your preferred method. Okay. Next slide, please. We are towards the end of the presentation, so does anyone have any questions before I go through the last couple of slides?
I don't see any questions coming in, Teresa.
All
We've got
right,
the
thank
chat.
you. Okay, so now what I want to talk about in the beginning when I introduced when Carol introduced me and I said that I work for Taxpayer Advocate Service, we are an independent organization within the IRS. So I am an IRS employee, but Taxpayer Advocate, our mission is to help taxpayers who are having problems with the IRS and they've tried and they can't get it resolved on their own. So Taxpayer Advocate Service, we have our own website. We have a lot of information. So this is just a little bit of what of the information that we have. We can, parts of our website they're available in both English and Spanish. There's a main Get Help page. If you select View All Help, you will be presented with a search box where you can search for a specific topic or an IRS notice number. Below the search box are various topics you can select to get help with. Not every topic is shown on the screen. There are more that you can choose from. This is just a selection. Also note the green TAS virtual assistance bubble at the bottom right. The TAS virtual assistant can help guide you to the correct information by giving you specific prompts and steps. Not shown is a section for our digital tools called estimators that can help you with determining eligibility for certain healthcare related tax credits and estimate the total credit you may claim. Lastly, at the bottom of the page are two buttons that will take you to a listing of your rights as a taxpayer and to a contact us page. Once you choose the topic closest to the issue you may have, you will see information laid out in the following format. What do I need to know? And this will provide an explanation of the issue. What should I do? Section will explain the steps you can take to resolve it. How will this affect me? Section that explains how the issue may affect you or your account and what might happen if you do not take action. The next section is titled, Wait, I Still Need Help. And that lists other options for how and where you can get more help. Resources and guidance section will give you a listing of all the resources available that relate to the issues that have more and ones that have more information about the topic and ones that link to forms or other products needed to take those actions. A taxpayer rights section describes your rights as a taxpayer, specifically related to the issue. We will talk more about these rights later. Lastly, there's a related content section that provides additional information on the topic in related articles. Our site also has information on free or low-cost services for low-income and elderly taxpayers. And there's just so much more. So please take a few minutes and visit the Taxpayer Advocate Service website. Next slide, please. Help with federal tax issues. You may be eligible for our help if you can't resolve your tax problem through normal IRS channels. We also help taxpayers whose IRS problems are causing financial difficulty or significant cost. And what's important is our help is free for everyone. We don't have, income limits. We don't just help a section of the population. We help everyone who is eligible, who has tried and cannot get their issue resolved. So it's, that if you go to the Taxpayer Advocate website, and you will see a section that says, Can TAS help me with my tax issue? Next slide, please. And if you want to know more, there is plenty of information on all types of social media platforms. What I want you to remember is that Taxpayer Advocate Service is your voice at the IRS. If you need help getting an issue resolved and you have not been successful, please feel free to reach out to Taxpayer Advocate Service to see if we can assist you. So again, it's just our website is taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov. Then there's the Spanish version. You can just go to the English version, click on the top right. You'll see where you can switch it to Spanish. There's information for tax professionals. We have a roadmap that shows you where you are in the process. You can sign up to receive a monthly newsletter. We are on Facebook as Your Voice at IRS, Twitter, what do they call it now? X, Your Voice at IRS, YouTube, TAS NTA, which stands for Taxpayer Advocate Service, National Taxpayer Advocate. And then there's also the taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov/blog. You can sign up to receive a blog. So that is the end of the presentation.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself there. Thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Miguel. We're going to open it up to questions one more time, if anybody has anything. I don't see anything coming in. We did have, we were hoping that somebody from our local VITA clinic would be able to be present. They are not here today. I have sent all of that information out to our Collier office though. So Miguel, if you haven't sent it out to Broward, if there is local VITA information you could send out to the Broward office, that would be helpful. But I do want to just encourage everybody to know who is doing your tax returns. That is one of the highest things we see in the LITC is somebody going to somebody who's not eligible or not an appropriate tax preparer, and they make mistakes or commit all-out fraud. So please be careful when going to somebody else. But
And
I think
we get lots and lots of cases because people have submitted a tax return that is inaccurate, and so that that is a big issue. When you have someone prepare your tax return, if something doesn't look right, question them. Make sure you understand everything is on your tax return. Even though someone else is preparing it, you are ultimately responsible for what is on your tax return. So when in doubt, ask questions, and do not, if you don't agree with it, don't authorize them to file it electronically.
And we've actually have tax preparers go in and change information afterwards because they weren't actually authorized tax preparers. They might have just been a notary or somebody holding themselves out as a tax preparer. So you really do need to be careful. So thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Miguel.
Thank you.
Any final words from either of you? No. Okay. And thank you everybody for attending.